In a couple of years, F.E.A.R will be 20 years old. But at the time of launch, I don't think it had the industry-wide effect it should have. Back then, almost every single-player shooter was trying to chase either Half-Life or Halo, and in a couple of years Call of Duty 4 would come out, changing shooters forever, for better or worse. But if you played F.E.A.R back then, and it had that sort of an impact on you, well, you're now old enough to make your own game. And we've seen a resurgence of what I call Woo shooters. The original F.E.A.R was heavily inspired by John Woo films. Monolith described it as lots of gun fu. And most importantly, whenever there was any gunfight, there needed to be a ton of particle effects. There needed to be smoke and sparks and blood and guts everywhere. To top it all off, these games usually had a slow motion mechanic. F.E.A.R wasn't exactly the first game of this sort of subgenre. I mean, Max Payne came out in 2001. With that said, I've always looked at F.E.A.R as the holy grail of these style of games. The effects and chaos happening in slow motion has truly been unmatched. That is, until today. Yeah, this is gonna be a good one. Hey everyone, Jarek here, and this is District Steel. This is where I would usually cover the story, if there was one. While overall I really enjoy this game, no story kind of disappoints me. A lot of love and care and polish went into these environments, yet I have no idea what's happening. I don't mean I wasn't paying attention and didn't understand it. I mean there's literally no story. There's no voice acting, there's no notes to explain the background lore, there's nothing to explain anything. Why do I have one robotic arm? Why do I have a jetpack? Why am I in this robot hell of a universe? Why am I shooting robots? Why are they the bad guys? What city am I in? Am I even on Earth? Like, genuinely, what is going on? In District Steel's defense, this is an early access game, so I don't know if this is something they plan on adding on later. Clearly their main focus is the gameplay. But again, there is a lot of attention to detail put into these environments. It's almost kind of a shame you spend most of the game indoors. I think the game looks the best when you get outside and really get to see where you are. These environments are cohesive, they're natural, it doesn't feel like I'm just playing a video game, despite doing some of the most video gamey stuff I've ever done. As for the graphics themselves, well, it's no Half-Life Alyx, but it still does look pretty good. There's even a bunch of little details. For example, I have a Valve index, which means I can control individual fingers. Do a flip. Okay. And with every time I move my finger on the left hand, that being my robotic hand, it makes robotic noises. It's the little details that count. Or while every time you shoot a robot, it visibly twitches its entire upper body up and to the left or to the right, you can see where it's going to shoot. Extra details like this give a lot of information to the player and also just look right. I mean, this looks like it came straight out of a Star Wars droid. So there's tons of polishing touches and animations and the world looks right. Overall, aesthetically, it's solid. But you probably don't care about any of this. After seeing the intro, you probably want to know about the gameplay. Yeah, this game is really fun. Let's start with base mechanics. There's two mechanics that really make this game feel different from any other VR title I've played. The first one is the ability to use a short-ranged jetpack. By default, this will go the direction you are looking, which doesn't make any sense to me. Usually, if I'm jetpacking at an enemy, I'm wanting to punch them, so I already have my hand at them. More importantly, I want to look around as I'm moving, so it makes much more sense for it to go the direction of my hand instead, which thankfully is an option. Remember when I said something about punching opponents? Well, you have the robotic arm of God. A light touch with this thing will send opponents flying. Combine that with your boosting abilities, and this game gives you a lot of incentive to get close to your opponent. Because not only does this function as a jetpack, if you do it on the ground, you will slide. And if you do it while crouching, you will super slide. Punching an opponent does not get rid of your momentum. You can go multiple enemies in a row. Oh, also, I forgot to mention there's bullet time. Like I said, F.E.A.R is kind of the benchmark for visual effects during bullet time. But I think we have finally got a game that made bullet time even more over the top while not being too much. There is something amazingly satisfying about going into a room, activating slow motion, killing everything, ending slow motion, and watching bodies fall and fly everywhere. The primary gameplay loop is the same as F.E.A.R. There is an arena with enemies, go in there, use your melee, use your slow motion, kill everyone before they can even react. And they absolutely nailed this part of the game. Unfortunately, the AI is a little dumb. To be honest, sometimes they just kind of run in and then stand there and wait for you to kill them. It's still satisfying, but I do think the enemies need to be a little smarter than this. Have one of them try to flank me if I'm just standing behind cover rather than just standing there, letting me reload and take my time. I do have another complaint. You know the boosting mechanic I mentioned earlier? Well, that's on a short cooldown, which is a good thing because then it'd be very overpowered if it wasn't. The thing is, when you go slow-mo, that cooldown is also slow, which leads to you just kind of looking at an enemy, wanting to boost at them and melee them, but you can't yet. You're running out of slow-mo, so you can't just wait for the cooldown to end. This majorly affects the flow of combat in slow motion. Personally, I think something should be adjusted here. Make it so that when I get a kill, I get a boost back, for example. No boost. Boost, please. I guess they make up for it with how many ways you can just destroy these robots. You can blow their torsos off their legs, shoot their heads off, it's just very satisfying. And every time you kill one of them, you get more slow motion back. That's what that blue recharge meter is at the bottom left. This gives you incentive to actually go out of your way and kill opponents rather than just sitting there waiting for it to recharge. You also can pick up items that will fully recharge your slow-mo, and you can carry these items in your wrist pocket, along with other items like healing items, nothing really too crazy. But how about your guns? These guns are an anomaly. Their audio design is a little lackluster. It's not terrible, but really the guns could sound a lot more punchy. But despite the sound effects sounding meh, the effect is so devastating that they still feel strong. Your starting pistol is just a semi-auto pistol. It has a laser to make aiming easier, but there's not really a whole lot to say about it. However, it's not just a pea shooter. It will stay useful to the end of the game, especially because if enemies don't know you're there, a single shot to the head will kill them, no matter how weak the gun. When I first noticed this, that was when it clicked that they were definitely inspired by F.E.A.R. That's exactly how F.E.A.R. embraces this. Next up is your SMG. This serves as a fairly weak but fairly fast-firing automatic. Honestly, not a whole lot to say here. It feels fine and functions right. But then you get to your shotgun. This thing is a tri-barreled shotgun, and it destroys everything with a single shot. Going slow motion and watching the pellet spread slowly get closer to an enemy just to obliterate its upper half from its legs, it's just beautiful. It is so perfect. Well, later on in the game, you will get the ability to get a different pistol, a revolver. This revolver uses the same ammo as the SMG. The revolver itself is awesome. It basically functions as a hand cannon. Yeah, I like this revolver. Yeah, single shot to the head will kill pretty much anything in the game. That said, it obviously replaces your other pistol on your hip, but since it uses the same ammo as your SMG, it kind of also replaces your SMG, with the exception of when you don't have time to reload and you need to pull something else out. For clarity, this game has a holster system, pistol on your hip, SMG on your lower back, shotgun over your shoulder. This occasionally made me pull my SMG out when I was trying to pull my pistol out. Happened a lot, actually. Other than that, it worked fine. My next complaint, though, is that that's it. Those are all the guns in the game. Really, only 4? This is even more frustrating by the fact that there's so many more guns in the game that they just tease you with. There's literal racks of different shotguns and automatics, and they look so good. I want to use them, and I can't. Look at all of these guns here. Let me use them. Now again, this is early access and the revolver was added in a later patch, so maybe these weapons will be usable at some point. If that's not your current plan, please make that your plan. But with the weapons that we do have, I can't complain. They feel really good, especially that shotgun. It's just perfect. There is currently 6 missions in the game that will take you roughly 3 to 4 hours. This game costs around $20, so it's not full price, and I think it's worth it. The map design itself is not linear once you get into a combat encounter. Again, I'm gonna say F.E.A.R. a lot. This is like F.E.A.R.'s combat encounters, where it almost feels like a multiplayer arena. It is a linear game, it's not like it's an open world game, but once you're fighting something, you have plenty of different routes to go. I've always preferred this approach. I have no problem with linear shooters as long as you do linear right. You can even unlock cheats. If you explore the environment, you find these purple chips. This is basically currency, and then you can buy new cheats, with some hilarious results. I'm gonna turn on exploding enemies. Let's get big head mode, then giant mode. Oh god. Oh my god, look at them. Oh right, they're exploding enemies now. I kind of forgot. I have to like double crouch through here. All right, here we go. Oh, yeah, why do I keep forgetting they blow up? I literally turned that on. What's less hilarious is the final boss. Now, I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to just show the final boss if you plan on playing this game. So, spoiler warning, I'll be putting a chapter if you just want to skip past this or just look at the timestamp I'm putting there. Give them a second. Let people skip forward. They don't want to see it. Alright, so this final boss is cool in design. You had seen this airplane helicopter thing flying over numerous times throughout the game. District Steel makes a point that you know it is there, so actually fighting it at the end is a pretty cool idea. Problem is, it's a multiple stage boss that doesn't have checkpoints between each multiple stage, and there's pits in the middle of the map without ledges to grab the edges, and you have a boost mechanic, so it's very easy to accidentally fall into the pit and have to do the boss all over again. I even had the boss randomly kill me even though I was behind cover and then have to fight the boss again that way. All this can diminish a good amount of fun and just make it really annoying. Now you can quick save in this game by pausing the game and then selecting quick save, but when you pause the game, it doesn't actually pause the game, it still goes on in real time, so that's easier said than done. Conclusion, please add checkpoints after each stage. This boss would be perfect if you did that, but without checkpoints, it just makes it really damn annoying sometimes. It's not even particularly difficult, it just feels like you had a cheap death and now you have to waste another 10 minutes of your life. I know that 10 minutes was real important. It's just one of those little things that makes you irrationally angry at a game. But that's a really small change that can easily happen, and there you go, the game's fun again. So yeah, if you're looking for another F.E.A.R. title to pick up and play, it's worth it. The best way I can describe this game is that it's like if Boneworks met F.E.A.R. I'm really interested to see how this shapes up. Again, this is an early access title, it's not done. But what is here is very polished, and there's a good amount of content already. The last few missions were really starting to ramp up, opening up your space in the amount of enemies you fight, and that's when it gets really good. So yeah, again, if you want another F.E.A.R. game, highly recommend. Huge thanks to my channel members for supporting this channel. If you become a member, you get to see my videos at least 1 week ahead of time. Huge thanks to those of you that joined me over on Twitch while I streamed this game. Streaming is always fun, I love hanging out. Check my Twitch on the bottom right if you want to do that. And of course, a huge thanks to all of you for watching this video.